Hey friends, right, so this was not the video that I was expecting to make this week, but things happen, things come early, so this is the video you're getting this week. So this is the 16-inch new MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro chip, and I'm just going to unbox it for you guys, show you what it's like inside. I know there's a ton of videos on this already, but I'm just super excited to finally get my hands on the newest MacBook Pro. My current MacBook Pro is from 2015, and it has a lot of good issues, battery life issues, performance issues. The ports don't work anymore as they used to, the USB ports. So I am excited to finally have something that has been updated. I've been waiting for this device for a very long time. But let me just quickly run through the specs with you. So this actually is going to have 32 gigs of RAM. So I updated the RAM to 32 gigs. It is the M1 Pro chip, not the M1 Max, which means it has a 10-core CPU, a 16-core GPU. 8 of those are the high-performance cores, and 2 of those CPU cores are the efficiency cores. And I also upgraded the storage to 1 terabyte. Now, this is also in space gray, but with all that being said, I'm actually not going to be keeping this device. And there are a couple of reasons for that, which I can get into as we open this up. So let's go ahead and just see what this device looks like. So you can see here that there's still plastic on the MacBook Pros. Unfortunately, they got rid of it on the iPhones, but not on the MacBooks yet. So we'll take this off. And I'm sorry, I really wanted to do this as a live unboxing, but there are, my current setup is in the living room, and there's a lot of noise that you can hear from my neighbors in the living room, so it makes it really hard to do a live unboxing there. So I'm hoping that with the new MacBook Pro, I can move my setup into the bedroom and do live unboxings here and just filming setups in here, so it's just a little bit more intuitive. But these are just my thoughts. I don't actually know how far I'll get along in that process, but I really hope to. And it won't be with this MacBook Pro, unfortunately, but it will hopefully be with a new one that I will order after I return this one. Okay, so on the front here, you can see that you have the MacBook sitting here. So this is really cool. I'm gonna lift this up and set it aside. Oh, wow, that is, that is really heavy. Jeez, okay. And then in here, you're gonna get your MagSafe charger. So it's USB-C to MagSafe. And I guess I will have to take it out because I will be using the laptop for a bit before I return it. But I'll just leave it in the box for now. And then underneath the paperwork, you have the power brick. And this is a really chunky power brick. I'm not gonna remove the plastic on it or anything, or the paper. But you can see here that this says, it should say how many watts it is on here. Oh, here it is. 140 watts. That's a lot of power that's in this power brick. So, or that this power brick can provide. So 140 watts, and it will allow for fast charging with the MagSafe cable. You can also charge with USB-C, but you won't get fast charging on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. You can get fast charging with the 14-inch MacBook Pro, I believe, with USB-C and MagSafe. But for 16-inch, if you want to do fast charging, you will have to only use MagSafe. You'll just get regular charging with USB-C. You have some paperwork, and I think the Apple stickers in this one are actually black to show how pro this device is, but I really don't care about the Apple stickers, so we'll put those back in. All right, so we can set the box aside. If you want to see what the artwork looks like on the box, here it is. You can kind of see the notch on the wallpaper here, which I already have discussed in my previous video about the MacBooks and how I feel about the notch. I think everyone is overreacting, either extremely too comfortable with it or extremely too uncomfortable with it. So either way, I think, it's there, it's here to stay, and we just will have to get over it. But I personally would prefer a laptop without a notch, but it's here, so I can't really do anything about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and unwrap the plastic, or I guess this is technically paper. on the device. I'll save that for later. So when I first pulled it out, I told you this was pretty heavy. And it is a pretty heavy device, and it's also very, very thick. You know, seeing it in person, it's kind of hard to believe that Apple made such a thick product. But given the performance and hopefully the sufficient battery life, it should be good that it's this big. I think hopefully it'll be appreciated that they decided to actually make a device that's thicker in order to put the ports back, make sure it has enough battery, and will have enough power as well. So let's take a look at the different sides. So on this side, on the left side, you see you have the MagSafe port here, the MagSafe connector, and you have two USB-C ports, or maybe it's USB 4 now, or Thunderbolt, and then you have a headphone jack. And then on this side, you have your SD card slot, another USB-C/Thunderbolt port, and an HDMI port. So it's great that I have a 2015 MacBook Pro right now. So the only ports I'm losing are USB-A ports, which is fine because USB-A is a terrible connector. USB-C is definitely way better. So I think that's definitely fine. And I just confirmed they're actually Thunderbolt 4 ports, not Thunderbolt 3. So that's good to know. All right, so let's go ahead and open the screen. Oh, wow, it turned on right away. So the other really exciting thing about these new MacBook Pros, which I was not expecting at all, is that there is ProMotion on this display. So you won't be able to tell on the video, but there is 120 hertz, which means that it have the same refresh rate as my current iPad Pro and the new iPhone 13 Pros. So that is a really pleasant surprise. Now, something else you'll notice here is that the touch bar is gone, and now there are function keys. Again, I'm coming from a 2015 MacBook Pro, so I never got to experience the touch bar. So I don't really know what I'm missing or what I didn't miss. And I guess in all honesty, people obviously did not like the touch bar that much. But you can see that the function keys are full-size keys. They're not like the small ones that I have on my 2015 MacBook Pro. These are full-size keys, which I think is really nice. I think it'll, just makes it easier to press the keys, and it's just better to have on the keyboard as well. And then over here, you have a Touch ID button. Again, my 2015 MacBook Pro did not have Touch ID, so this will be really nice to have. And you can see that they changed the keyboard here, that the whole bottom part of the keyboard is black. It's not just the keys that are black. And then we also have our giant trackpad once again, which is way bigger than my 2015 trackpad. So that is really cool to see as well. And then the camera angle is kind of hiding the notch, but if I bring it closer, you can see that we do have the notch up here, and it eats into the display. And honestly, like I said, I prefer a display without a notch, but if you can just see how thin the bezels are around the screen, and I know it's hard to see on camera, but if I push this back, even in person, looking at this display is really beautiful. I mean, the bezels are really, really small. I think they look a little bit thicker on camera, but in person, they are really tiny all around the sides. And I think that I kind of appreciate that they were able to go this thin with the bezels, even if it meant having the notch. At first, I was under the impression that I would have preferred having more of an iPad Pro style design where, the bezels can be a little bit thicker as long as they were uniform across. But I think this actually looks pretty good. But we'll have to see how the notch works in terms of software optimization. I really think that the way Apple optimizes the software to accommodate the notch will really be the breaking point, or will really be the deciding factor as to whether the notch is a pro or a con. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through and set up the device, and let's see what it looks like. All right, so everything has been set up, and you can see here that the menu bar on macOS Monterey on these new MacBook Pros actually looks considerably thicker than what you would see on your other devices. And that's because it's accommodating this notch that you can see here. So the notch, comes down pretty deep. So the menu bar also comes down pretty deep. to accommodate that. And I actually am, right now at least, liking the way that looks. I think that the thicker menu bar just seems to be more appealing aesthetically, and also seems like it'd be easier to press the buttons and have your menu icons laid out here. But again, this is just an initial impression. I'll have to use it in the long term to see what I actually think about it with more intensive use. And so I also wanted to kind of bring up that the reason why I'm going to be returning this is, well, there are many reasons, but the first reason is that I didn't use my student discount when I pre-ordered the Macs, or when I ordered them on launch day. So I could save quite a bit of money if I use my student discount. So I'm going to return it and then repurchase one using that. And I also think that I'm going to go with the silver Mac instead of the space gray. I think I prefer the silver look better. And I also think I'm going to be upgrading to the M1 Max instead of the M1 Pro. So if we go to about this Mac over here, you can see that it has the M1 Pro chip. And I think that at this price point, which is around $3,000, justifying an M1 Pro over an M1 Max doesn't seem to make a considerable amount of sense, especially considering what I hope to use this device for and its longevity, its potential longevity. I think once you already reach the $2,000 price point, it makes sense to just upgrade to the M1 Max, especially considering that apparently the M1 Max, based on early benchmarks and things like that using Final Cut Pro, is considerably faster at exporting and rendering than the M1 Pro. So I haven't actually looked into the specifics of that yet, but right now I'm thinking that I think that the M1 Max will probably be a more sensible purchase in the long run than the M1 Pro. And hopefully I can get that with a student discount. So it should be around the same price, if not just a little bit more. But that's basically what I plan to do in the future with my future purchase. So I won't be able to keep this for very long. I'll be returning this really soon. But while I have it, I'm going to use it, and I'm just going to right now briefly go over my first impressions. So first of all, I don't know if this is something new with the M1 MacBooks, or if it's just on these newly refreshed MacBook Pros, but there is no backlight button for your keyboard, which is something I'm not used to. So I think this is an automatic backlight, like on the Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pro, which I am not a huge fan of. But I guess I will either have to just turn off the backlight or try to see if there's some sort of setting to manipulate that. The second thing is that I really do appreciate these larger function keys for sure. I mean, it's a small thing, but it's something I noticed right away that actually has quite a bit of utility, and I'm really enjoying that. Now, looking at the 120 hertz, it's kind of hard to see unless you go on you're scrolling or something like that. So I'm going to go to Google or something and look up, or maybe I'll just go to Apple's website and I'll just scroll through it. Now, looking at the ProMotion display, I don't know if it's working on the 120 hertz is working on Safari or not. But just in general, it's not as noticeable to me as it was on the devices like the iPad Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro. On those devices, it's like pretty noticeable, the 120 hertz refresh rate. On here, I'm having, I think, more trouble visualizing that. So I can try adding a couple of desktops and seeing what that looks like. Yeah, I mean, swiping between them, it doesn't really, it's really hard for me to tell. I think I will really have to use it for Final Cut and for some video editing to actually get a better idea if I can tell the difference between 120 hertz or not, which is a little disappointing. I mean, this is just a personal problem, but I thought it would be a lot more noticeable than it is, because it's just like night and day on the iPads, at least. Which I use. So I was hoping that it would be the same case in using the MacBook, but I am also looking at it through the camera and also through the side. So I think I really will have to spend some time with it to give like a really good impression of what the display looks like. But the display obviously is incredible. It looks great. I'm gonna have to just use it now and put it through its paces and see how it performs. I think this is gonna be more than enough power for anything that I could possibly need for like a long time. So I don't think I'll have any concerns with that. And yeah, let me just close it here and show you the form factor one last time before I wrap it up. It does feel pretty heavy, but I think the body is actually smaller than my current 15-inch MacBook Pro, which I appreciate. And it feels, I think, about the same weight as my current 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2015. Maybe a touch heavier, but that's also because I feel like the chassis is a little bit more compact. But it definitely looks thicker than my MacBook Pro, so I'll have to compare that and see for myself. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this unboxing and just first impressions. I'm really excited to get to use this. And I'm really excited to get the one that I'll actually get to use when I reorder it and I return this one. But in the meantime, I am going to go ahead and try utilizing this to the greatest extent that I can. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated with what I think. So that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching probably your like 100th MacBook Pro unboxing. But I will see you guys in the next video. Until then.